Okay, this is actually Math 7A lesson on reviewing angle pair relationships. Here's your essential question. What is the relationship between complementary angles, supplementary angles, and vertical angles? And I would encourage you to use the symbol angle with an S in it for all of these, just to shorten things up for you. Okay, so what is an angle? It's two rays with the same endpoint. So here's the endpoint right here. It's where the y is, and the rays are yx and yz. So the rays are the sides, and the endpoint is the vertex. The vertex is where those, kind of like a corner, where those sides come together. And you name the angle with 3 capital letters, but the vertex letter has to be in the middle. So you can either call this angle x, y, z, or you can call this angle z, y, x, or you can even call it angle y. But that y has to be in the middle. It's named by the vertex if it's going just with a single letter. Okay, so the first kind of angle relationship is adjacent angles. Adjacent angles must have one side in common. So I'm going to go ahead and show this side down the middle here. Okay, that's not very good. Let's just switch to a highlighter. There, that's better. This side down the middle is the side that the two angles have in common. They have the same vertex here, and no interior points in common. So by interior points, we mean points like this are not shared with the ones over here. So we have two angles. If I were to put some letters on here, I can call this, let's call this A, let's call this B, let's call this C, let's call this X. So angle AXB is adjacent to angle BXC. So notice these are the two angles that are not overlapping. They're just adjacent. They're side by side, sharing a side, in fact. Okay, complementary angles are two angles with a sum of 90 degrees. They can be adjacent, but they don't have to be. So here are two examples. The first examples are adjacent. So let's say that this first angle, the small angle, is 30 degrees, and the larger angle is 60 degrees. You can have those same angles separated. They don't have to be adjacent. They don't have to be like against each other, touching, for them to be complementary. Okay. So if we have complementary angles like this one, we can tell they're complementary by the little symbol that you see here with the X, the corner. So if we're trying to find out the missing angle measurement, I want you to start writing these in algebraic equations. So I want you to think about the relationship. These are complementary angles, which means they add to 90. So I want you to write an equation showing that they add to 90. So 33 plus x equals 90. Now you can very simply solve that. Remember, we're focusing on the side with the x. We want to get rid of that positive 33. So subtract 33 from each side. And you have x equals, let's see, that's 8. That's 57. Okay, the next kind of angles are supplementary angles. They're two angles with a sum of 180. They can be adjacent, but they don't have to be. But if they're adjacent, they form a line. And that's why we talk about them equaling 180, because those outer sides of the angles form a straight line, which has a measure of 180. So if I were to put some letters on this, we're looking at angle, actually let me just trace over them. We're looking at angle, this red angle, and the blue angle are adjacent, but they're also supplementary because together they add to 180. So let me put some values in there. Let's say this is 140 degrees, and I'm just making these up. and this is 40 degrees. So together they make 180. And you could have the same thing down here. They don't have to be adjacent. They do just have to add to 180. So if you're trying to find the missing angle here and you've got an angle relationship where they are supplementary, we know they add to 180, so that's what we're going to use to write our equation. So 129 plus x equals 180. You want to get the x alone, so subtract 129 from each side. Okay, so we have x equals, that's going to end up being what, 51? And then the last kind is vertical angles. When you have two lines that intersect, the angles opposite each other are vertical angles. So for example, these angles are vertical angles. And vertical angles are congruent. So again, I'm going to just make up a value. Let's say that their angle measurement is, I don't know. Let's say 70 degrees. So 70 degrees for this one. This is also going to be 70 degrees. And then we have a second set of vertical angles, and that's the pair here, sort of the upper one and the lower one. So if those two are 70 and 70, we also know that these are supplementary. This one and this one are supplementary. So we can go ahead now and say, oops, this is 110 degrees. This is also 110 degrees. Okay, so if we're going to find the missing angle measurements on an example like this, I always like to start with a vertical angle first. So we have a known angle, 65. Can you find the vertical angle? That's right, it's y. So that is also going to be 65 degrees. Let's write that in. Okay, now I notice there's a relationship between the angle x and angle y, and that relationship is that they are supplementary. So supplementary means they add to 180, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add x plus 65 equals 180. Subtract 65 from each side. So I have x equals, that's 7, that's 10, that's 5, that's 1, that's 1. 115. So I'm going to go ahead and fill that in. 115. And now angle x and angle z are vertical angles also. They're the other pair of vertical angles. So they are 115 degrees as well. Okay, and that's it for today's notes.